Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another product review. And as you can see from the box I'm holding, we're going to be reviewing and taking a look at yet another red dot optic. And this one was sent to the channel from a company I was unfamiliar with. This is the Fortic EP1. It's a micro red dot that uses an RMSc footprint. So for this review, we're going to try it out on my Sig Sauer P365. Now, I know a lot of people out there are interested in red dots, and we all know the big names. But sometimes people are just looking for a simple dot that just works, stays zeroed, and of course stays mounted to the firearm, and appears to be of good quality. Well, that's why I like to try out all of these optics, because sometimes we find a diamond in the rough. If you're not looking for a go-to-war optic like a Trijicon, but just need something that's going to work on your basic carry piece, this might be it. So that's what we're going to check out here in this review. So let me adjust the camera, let's unbox this optic, see what's inside, then we'll mount it to the pistol, take it to the range, and see how it works. So here is the box the Fortic EP1 optic comes in. It kind of reminds me of the O-Sight optic boxes, but all of the information on the outside of the box is warning labels. There's no information about any of the features or specs of the optic. So let's go ahead and open it up. Looks like we get some swag and we get a card. Thank you for choosing Fortic Optics. There's the optic itself. Let's get that out. And it says pull here. And it looks like we get a bunch of tools and screws. And of course we get the owner's manual. And I will go over that once I install it. Let's go ahead and open this up, see what's in here. Ooh, we get a lot of screws. And look at that. It's organized great. And this tool here definitely reminds me of the O-Sight tool. In fact, this optic looks like one of the smaller O-Sights as well. Kind of makes me wonder if it has been reverse engineered from one of those, or maybe it's even made in the same factory. So that's what is in this box. Looks like we also get a cleaning cloth here on the bottom. But let's take a look at this optic now. And it's your typical micro enclosed red dot. It looks pretty good. I don't see any manufacturing defects on it. Looks like we have a side-loading battery tray. We have the adjustments for elevation and windage in the usual places. It does have a built-in backup iron sight. I kind of like that. And everything else about it looks pretty normal. We got the controls here on the side. So that's the close-up of the optic. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and mount it to my Sig Sauer P365. You can see I do have an O-Sight on it right now. This is the older SE model. And man, that looks very, very similar. All right, well, let me get out the tool, let me install it, let me go over the owner's manual, and then I'll go over all of its features. And then, of course, we're going to take it to the range. And I am going to interject a segment I wasn't expecting to show on camera, but when it comes to the installation of this Fortic sight, I noticed something when I removed the O-Sight. The O-Sight is pretty secure on there. It's pretty tight when it comes to mating up with the posts that align on the footprint, and even without the screws installed, it feels pretty solid. When I put on the Fortic, there's a lot of play in that. It doesn't mean that once I screw everything down that it's going to move or anything. It's just something that I noticed. So it kind of feels like the tolerances with this footprint on the Fortic are just a little bit larger. And that might actually be good depending on your pistol and your optics plate. But when I compare it to the O-Sight, it's on there a lot more solid and secure, even without the screws. So I just wanted to point that out. As I said, I don't think it's really going to change anything about the performance, but I wanted to show it on camera. So we have the Fortic EP1 optic mounted to the SIG P365, and now that I've tightened down the screws It is on there securely. It looks like it takes up about the same amount of space as an O sight or any comparable micro red dot. Looks pretty good. So in order to turn it on, you simply push the up button, and it's going to be a 6 MOA dot, and that's the only reticle on this model. However, the instruction manual that came with this one talks about changing the reticle, but I'm pretty sure they just use the same instruction manual for multiple models. I know the dot on camera looks really huge, and of course the camera is not going to be able to focus in on it, but the dot looks clear. I don't see a tail with it, and I do have a minor astigmatism, and often that can be an issue. This is a very simple dot in that you simply have the up and down arrows, which will adjust the illumination. The manual also says it does have a shake awake feature, but once it's on and you want it to turn off, you're going to have to wait a while. There are some settings, and you can hold the down button, and depending on how many times it flashes, it will go into a sleep mode at different intervals. I believe 6 minutes, 6 hours, and the like, and you can set it to your heart's desire. But these do not take up a lot of energy, so you can really leave them on for a long time. I personally like these simple dots. I just want to be able to turn them on manually, turn them off manually, which, by the way, if you want to do that, you simply push both buttons together at the same time, and it's off. Yeah, so for me, it's simple to use. It only has one reticle. The glass looks good. It mounts to the pistol just fine, and the supplied tool works as it should. So that's all the features and specs of this Fortic EP1. So now it's time to take it to the range, and for the first test, we're just going to shoot this pistol, and then we're going to zero the optic. We're going to see how well that goes. And the other thing I do want to test, that I do care about, is to make sure that when it comes to the adjustments, the clicks are tactile and audible, and right now they seem to be pretty darn strong. So that is often a complaint I have with the more affordable Chinese optics, but these seem to be pretty good. All right, so let's go to the range and let's zero this optic. And just learning how this optic works, I think I'm pretty impressed. I'm not the biggest fan of the size of the reticle. It's a 6 MOA dot. Typically, I prefer 2 MOA dots. And even at closer distances, I think it covers up too much of the target. I never feel like I can be very precise with it. But when it came to zeroing the optic, the tool works perfectly, and as compared to many of their competitors, the detents are very clear, they are strong, and you hear them. I really do like that. It gives me a sense of confidence that they are going to hold zero. And I had no issue getting it sighted in. All right, so the next test I want to do is simply double the distance of the target, put another magazine through it, and just see at a further distance if there's anything else about this dot that I like or don't like, and we'll come back here to the garage and talk about it. And overall, I think that's pretty good. I did pull one or two of those shots, but those were definitely me and not the optic. Now, as I mentioned before, the size of the reticle is a little bit larger than a 2 MOA dot, which I think is kind of standard, but some people like this because it's easier to acquire, but as you're shooting at something at a further distance, it's going to cover up more of the target. But it is also staying securely mounted to the slide, and even though it has a very small window, I feel like I get a pretty good field of view with it. Now, speaking of the accuracy of this pistol with the Fortic EP1 on it, the next thing I want to do is set up the target at 25 yards. I'm going to shoot this pistol from the bench and use a rest and just see what the best group I can get with it is. And I'm pretty happy with those results, but this is not an optic designed for target or precision shooting. That 6 MOA dot is covering up most of that silhouette at 25 yards. But for home protection and personal carry, I think it would be just right. The dot, once again, is very clear, it's easy to acquire, and you have tons of brightness settings. All right, so the next test I want to do is kind of a durability test. I want to make sure it remains securely mounted to the slide, and I want to also make sure there's no electronic problems. Essentially, I want to put this optic under a little bit more stress. So we're going to go back to the range, do a few mag dumps with this pistol, and just make sure it's durable and it doesn't flicker or have any other issues. And as expected, I had no problems. Now, this was not a torture test where I put thousands and thousands of rounds through it, because this is not a go-to-war optic. If you're jumping out of airplanes into enemy battlefields, you might want to go with a Trijicon. But if you're like me and an average gun guy and looking for something on a budget that you just want to put on your carry gun that you can trust, well, this one is definitely working. It seems robust, and I had no problems with flickering. It just seems to be well built. All right, so the last test I want to do before I give you my final thoughts is just make sure it's holding zero. So let's set up the target at 7 yards again, just like the first test, shoot it again, and make sure I can get the same group. And this optic is holding 0, just as expected. So this thing does everything it's supposed to do, and that's the thing I have been so impressed by reviewing all of these budget-friendly Chinese optics. I know some people are going to have an issue with where it's manufactured. It's not a Trijicon, it's not an Aimpoint, it's not an EOTech. But not everybody's in the market for one of those. They want something that's just going to be durable and budget-friendly and reliable. And I think for an average gun person, this is a good option. But I know there's so many other options out there. So when it comes to choosing a red dot, you just have to decide what features do you want. If you're looking for something with a little bit larger dot because maybe your eyesight is poor or you feel like you could acquire it easier, this might be something to look at. If you're looking for something that's reliable, well, I tried to put it through a few tests and I had no problems with it. It stayed mounted as I mentioned, no problems with the battery or the electronics, and it's fully enclosed. It's a micro red dot with an RMSc footprint. It's an industry standard setup. I really like it. So if those are the features you're looking for, you can't go wrong with the Fortic EP1. Now, I also want to thank Fortic for sending this dot to the channel for review, and I wanted to mention that in full disclosure. But like many of the other dots I've reviewed, it simply works. Is it a go-to-war optic? No. But if you're an average gun person looking for something like this, I don't think you can go wrong. So on my star system, how would I rate the Fortic EP1 fully enclosed red dot? Well, I'm going to give it 4.5 stars out of 5. A very good rating. My only complaint is the size of the dot. I wish it was 2 MOA instead of 6 MOA. But in all of my other tests, it passed with flying colors. So tell me in the comments section below, what do you think of these fully enclosed RMSc micro red dots? I like them, especially if you're going to put them on a very small carry gun like the P365. They just seem to work. So, as always, thanks for watching.